What if I told you that two of the most unlikely enemies in Westeros, Ned Stark and Jaime Lannister, joined forces for one purpose: to put an end to Joffrey Baratheon before he ever sat on the Iron Throne? Imagine steel clashing in the Red Keep, not over pride, but over justice. Imagine the realm reshaped by an act of betrayal, not from spite, but from shared disgust. What happens when honor and guilt align to bring down the Mad King's heir? Ned stood at the balcony overlooking King's Landing, the stench of heat and power in the air. The Red Keep felt more like a prison each passing day. He had come to serve the realm, to protect Robert's legacy, but that legacy Joffrey was a monster in golden silk. He'd seen it in the boy's eyes, cold, entitled, vicious, and now Robert was dying, and Cersei's game was almost complete. Behind him, steel clinked. Jaime Lannister, the Kingslayer, leaned in the doorway, arms folded, a half-smile on his lips. "Funny, isn't it?" he said. "We both hate each other, but we hate him more." Ned didn't answer at first. He should have drawn his sword. He should have had the guards dragged Jaime out for treason. But his hand stayed still. The weight of the truth's Joffrey's bloodline, Robert's death, the impending chaos sat heavy in his bones. Jaime stepped forward, serious now. "You know what he is. You know what he'll become. I saw what happened the last time a mad child sat the throne. You think I stabbed Ares out of cowardice?" His voice cracked. "I did it to stop a fire that would have consumed us all." "And now you want to do it again," Ned said, voice low. "But this time, it's your nephew." "No," Jaime said. "This time, it's your daughter's would-be husband." The silence that followed wasn't empty, it was thick with the weight of possibilities, of lives changed, of thrones burned down and rebuilt. Ned looked down at the boy in the courtyard, laughing as he tormented a stable hand for sport. No mercy, no justice, just arrogance with a crown waiting. "Talk," Ned said. 3 nights later, under the cover of a moonless sky, Ned met Jaime again. The crypts of the Red Keep hid many secrets. One more wouldn't change anything. They spoke in whispers, voices trembling, not with fear, but with consequence. "We do this," Jaime said, "and there's no turning back. Cersei will unleash hell. Tywin might march before the week ends. Your name will be mud in the north. Mine's already ash." "I didn't come for politics," Ned muttered. "I came for peace, and peace will never exist with that boy on the throne." This wasn't about vengeance. It wasn't even about honor. It was survival for Arya, for Sansa, for the realm itself. Joffrey's reign would bring fire. His death might bring war, yes, but not doing anything would bring apocalypse. "Tomorrow," Jaime said, "after Robert dies, Breath rattled in his chest. Ned sat beside him, watching his friend fade. Jaime stood at the door. Their eyes met only once. They knew this was the last night the 7 kingdoms would know peace. And then the king died. Ned didn't let the mace send word right away. There was time, maybe an hour, to act before Cersei moved. Jaime slipped out before the bells rang. In the small council chamber, Joffrey strutted in like he already wore the crown. "I'll sit," he declared. "The realm is mine." Varys didn't speak. Littlefinger smirked. Cersei was absent, gathering her allies in secret, but Jaime moved like a shadow. 1 minute he wasn't there. The next, his blade was against Joffrey's throat. The boy shrieked. "You wouldn't dare, wouldn't I?" Jaime whispered. "You think because you wear a lion, you're king." Then came Ned. He stepped forward, slowly. like a judge approaching a condemned man. "You are not Robert's son," Ned said. Gasps filled the room. Varys went pale. Pycelle muttered a prayer. Littlefinger took a step back. "You lie," Joffrey screamed. "Your hair is golden," Ned said. "Like your uncle, like your mother. Not a drop of Baratheon blood runs through your veins." Then, in the silence, Ned did what he swore never to do. Again he drew his sword in the presence of the crown. Not to defend, but to deliver justice. "Stop, okay?" Did anyone else just get goosebumps? Ned Stark and Jaime Lannister teaming up to kill Joffrey. This is the twist we never saw coming. But wait, it gets even crazier. Because the moment Joffrey dies, Cersei's wrath explodes like wildfire. You think Tywin let that slide? You think the North stood by Ned after this? Hold tight, because Westeros is about to tear itself apart. The silence that followed Joffrey's final breath didn't last long. Cersei's scream echoed through the stone halls like a death bell, raw and full of venom. Within minutes, the Red Keep transformed from a palace into a battlefield of whispers and daggers. Jaime hadn't fled. He stood beside Ned as the Queen burst into the small council chamber. Eyes wild, flanked by Lannister guards and Seer Marin Trant. She didn't ask questions. "You killed my son," she spat, pointing at Jaime first, then at Ned Hugh. "Of you traitors, kingslayers." "He wasn't a king," Ned said firmly, stepping forward. "He was a lie." Cersei's lips curled. "And now you'll die for truth. That's what your honor costs you." Jaime didn't say a word, not one. His eyes remained locked with hers, and for the first time in years, the Queen saw regret behind those golden lashes. She saw weakness, maybe even shame. "Take them," she snarled. But no one moved. Not Varys, not Littlefinger, not even Pycelle. They watched, as if waiting to see who the realm would favor in this moment of chaos. And then the bells tolled. Robert's death was now public. The realm was leaderless. The capital a powder keg, and two men had just murdered the presumed heir in front of the entire small council Serbaristan. Ned called out, raising his voice. The old knight appeared from the hall, still wearing his white cloak, still a symbol of honor, untouched by Lannister gold. Ned faced him. "You served Ares. You served Robert. Will you serve truth?" Barristan hesitated, his hand on the hilt of his sword. His gaze flicked from Cersei to Jaime to Ned. "And what truth is that, Lord Stark?" "That Joffrey was not Robert's son," Ned said. "That he was born of incest, a stain on the throne. That the real heir sits far from this city, unaware. The realm burns." It was a gamble, a bold one, because while the council murmured and the guards gripped their swords, somewhere beyond the sea, a girl with silver hair still dreamed of fire and blood. But Ned wasn't thinking about Daenerys. He was thinking about Stannis. Baratheon. Meanwhile, at Dragonstone, ravens flew in like a storm. Stannis read the words slowly. Robert dead, Joffrey slain. Ned Stark declared the boy illegitimate. Jaime Lannister confessed to treason. King's Landing in turmoil. And then those final precious lines. "The throne is yours by blood and right. Come swiftly. Bring strength. Bring claim." Maester Cresson looked to Stannis, his face as grave as the sea outside. "If Lord Stark speaks truth, the realm must follow." Stannis said nothing for a long moment. Then he tore the letter in half. "I do not trust Ned Stark," he said coldly. "But I trust Jaime Lannister less. And if they killed the boy, then the Queen will summon Tywin. that means war. He walked to the map table, his fingers tracing the path from Dragonstone to the capital. Prepare the fleet. And back in King's Landing, chaos unraveled quickly. Cersei was confined to her quarters. Not arrested, not yet. Ned wasn't foolish. Killing Joffrey was already a move that many lords would call treason. Killing the Queen Mother might start a civil war before dawn, but she wouldn't stay quiet for long. Jaime, on the other hand, was shockingly still at Ned's side. "You could have run," Ned said, as they walked through the Godswood. "I've run for my name my whole life," Jaime replied. "Didn't fix anything. Why help me?" Ned asked again. "What do you gain?" Jaime gave a bitter chuckle. A dead son, a furious sister, and maybe, finally, a little bit of peace. "You think I enjoyed watching that boy strut around, like he owned the world? You think this redeems you? No. But it's a start." But pause. Can we just talk about how insane this twist is? Jaime Lannister, the Kingslayer, now standing with Ned Stark and Cersei, alive, humiliated, furious. You already know she's not staying quiet. This is the woman who blew up the Sept just to win back power. And now she's been stripped of her heir, her shield, her grip on the throne. But it gets worse. Because Tywin Lannister, he's about to flip the whole board over. So before we dive into what Tywin does next, I want to know, you Team Stark now that Ned finally broke his code for the greater good? Or does this alliance with Jaime make him a traitor too? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit like if this is already wilder than Season 8, and brace yourself, because Tywin's answer is blood and gold. Let's continue. The Raven arrived at Casterly Rock before the sun did. Tywin Lannister's face remained unreadable as he finished the message. His knuckles turned white as he rolled the parchment into a tight scroll. "Jaime betrayed us," Kevin asked softly. Tywin didn't speak. He simply stood and looked toward the sea. "He betrayed her," he muttered. "And worse he made a fool of this house." The servants watched in terrified silence as Tywin called his bannermen to prepare. "Send word to the Westerlands. Tell them we ride for war. The Starks have spilled Lannister blood in the Red Keep. They will answer for it." "But the king's dead," Kavon said. "The realm is already in chaos." "What if then we bring order?" Tywin snapped. "On our terms, with fire, with fear." And somewhere beneath the rock, a lion stirred awake. War was coming, and for Ned Stark, honor had just claimed its highest price yet. Robb Stark read the Raven's words once, then again, and a third time. He didn't speak. His bannermen waited around the long table in the great hall of Winterfell, the fire crackling as snow whispered against the window panes. The message had been clear. Joffrey is dead. Ned Stark executed the boy with Jaime Lannister's help. The Queen is under guard. King's Landing is on the brink of collapse. Tywin Lannister is marching east. Robb clenched the letter in his fist. "They'll call my father a traitor." "They already have," Greyjohn Umber growled. "Lions are roaring. They want war." "The Lannisters always want war," said Roose Bolton, cold and calm. "But now they have cause. Or at least, they'll say they do." Robb looked to his mother. Catelyn's face was unreadable. Her thoughts ran far south, beyond the neck, past the twins, straight to King's Landing, where Ned was surrounded by enemies, even as he held a blade soaked in royal blood. "Your father did what he thought was right," she said finally. "But right doesn't keep men safe. It doesn't protect our house." Silence fell again. Then Robb spoke. His voice was steel wrapped in ice. Send ravens to the Mormonts, the Karstarks, the Glovers, the Tullys. Tell them the north rides, south not. For glory, for justice. Meanwhile, in King's Landing, Ned felt the walls closing in. Seer Barristan Selmy had reluctantly sworn his sword to justice, but many others had not. The gold cloaks were split. Some still took coin from Littlefinger. Others remained loyal to the crown, whatever that meant now. Jaime kept close, his sword hand always near his hilt. Cersei was confined, but not helpless. She had spies, influence, rage. And then the next raven arrived. Tywin Lannister's army had crossed the Riverlands. Harrenhal was burning. Lord Tully was preparing for siege. The war had already begun. Any regrets yet? Jaime asked as they stood in the Tower of the Hand. Ned didn't answer at first. He watched Arya train in the yard below with Sario Farrell, her sword slicing the air with surprising grace. Sansa sat in the sept, still praying for her prince. She didn't yet understand the truth, or refused to. "I've made worse decisions," Ned said eventually. Jaime smirked. "Oh, I'm counting on that." But even Jaime was uneasy. The Lannister name was now broken into pieces. Tywin had disavowed him. Cersei wanted him dead. And the King's Guard no longer followed him. He had thrown away everything for a better king, he whispered to himself. And while the men of war clashed steel and plotted conquest, something else was stirring. Across the narrow sea, Daenerys Targaryen stood barefoot in the sand, cradling her dragon eggs. She knew nothing of Joffrey's death, nothing of Ned Stark's coup, but the winds were shifting. Viserys was dead. Khal Drogo still lived, but Khalasar had grown restless, and Daenerys was beginning to dream of thrones. "If they kill one king," she said aloud, watching her blood riders sharpen their blades, "they'll kill another, and another, until none remain." Jorah Mormont looked at her, wary. "You speak as if that's a bad thing." "No," she said. "I speak as if it's a pattern, and patterns can be broken." She pressed a hand against the shell of her dragon egg, feeling something pulse deep within. The world was unraveling. Perhaps it was time the dragons returned. But wait, pause. Can we talk about how absolutely bonkers this has become? Ned Stark isn't just alive. He's now a kingmaker, and maybe even a kingbreaker. Jaime Lannister is a fugitive from his own family. Robb Stark is marching south early, with a united north behind him. And meanwhile, Tywin is setting the Riverlands on fire in revenge. But none of them know. Daenerys is getting stronger by the day. And she's not coming to play politics. And here's where it gets even more twisted. Littlefinger hasn't made his move, yet think about it. He's been quiet, watching, calculating. You think he's going to let this chaos pass without planting a dagger somewhere? Let's keep going. The next blow came quietly, like poison in a cup. Lord Renly Baratheon arrived in King's Landing with a small force, waving the stag banner with pride. His smile was broad, his cloak was green, and behind him marched the Tyrells, Loras, Mace, and a dozen other knights, hungry for power. "I come to claim what's mine," Renly said to Ned in the throne room. "You have no claim," Ned replied. "Stannis is Robert's true brother. The law is clear." "The law," Renly laughed, "is made by those who survive the game. You think the people will flock to Stannis, cold, joyless, stern. I offer peace, beauty, alliance, and a crown you have no right to wear." Jaime leaned against a pillar. "Careful, Renly. My brother wore a crown once too. It didn't end well." Ned's patience was thinning. Leave, before your ambition costs you your head. Renly didn't flinch. Before long, Lord Stark, you'll realize this city doesn't need another soldier. It needs a ruler. He bowed mockingly and walked out. The Tyrells followed, whispers already growing like vines along the walls at Harrenhal. Smoke choked the sky. Tywin stood on the scorched remains of the old throne hall, banners of House Tully smouldering beneath his boots. They killed my grandson, he said flatly, and yet the realm doesn't scream for justice. Kevin stood beside him. They're afraid. They don't know who to follow. Then we give them clarity, Tywin replied. The North will burn. Tully will bend. And Ned Stark will watch. Everything he loves turned to ash. He turned to Ser Gregor. Ride west. Show them what Lannister mercy looks like. And just like that, the mountain rode again. Meanwhile, Sansa had finally learned the truth. Ned didn't want to tell her. Not yet, but Cersei had gotten to her first. She knew Joffrey was dead. She knew it was by her father's hand. And she hadn't spoken in days. In her chambers, she looked at the lion necklace she once cherished. Now it felt like a collar. You told me he was a monster, she said finally. I told you he wasn't the right prince, Ned said softly. I loved him. You loved a mask. She didn't cry, not anymore. Instead, she asked, will we ever go home? Ned didn't answer, because he didn't know anymore, and Arya was done waiting. She slipped through the Red Keep like a shadow, wooden sword in hand, but her eyes had changed. She wasn't a child anymore. She had seen a prince die. She had seen kings bleed. And she had heard the names of those who would pay. Cersei, Tywin, Trant, the mountain dot one by one. She whispered them into the night. And somewhere far away, the many-faced god listened. The raven from the twins arrived soaked in blood. Robb Stark read the message once, eyes narrowing with every line. Walder Frey, ever the opportunist, offered passage, but with conditions, hostages, alliances, a marriage pact, Catelyn warned. Him he'll turn on you the second it suits him. We don't have time to argue, Robb muttered. Tywin's already crossed the Trident. If we wait, he'll cut the Riverlands in two. And worse word had come that Tywin had ordered the mountain to ride toward the Riverlands, leaving behind a trail of ash and butchered small folk. The North rides south, Robb said finally, voice heavy with dread. But it rides through a swamp of betrayal. In the Red Keep, Ned met with Varys in the stillness of night. You've made many enemies, Varys whispered, voice soft as a breeze. And now they all circle, teeth bared. Let them, Ned replied. If the realm falls, because I spoke the truth, it was never worth saving. Varys paused, then leaned closer. Have you considered what will happen if Stannis marches and wins? He's the rightful heir. Yes, but he has no allies, no charm, no mercy. The small folk will hate him. The lords will fear him. He will burn half the realm to keep the other half loyal. Ned clenched his jaw. Then what would you have me do? Crowned Renly. He's younger, less entitled, and has the Tyrells whispering in his ear. I would have you think beyond bloodlines, Varys said. The war is not just for the throne. It is for what kind of peace will follow. And what do you want, Spider? Varys smiled, almost sadly. I want the realm to survive, even if it means placing a crown on a head that never asked for it. But it was too late for logic. The realm didn't want peace. It wanted vengeance. Tywin's armies descended on the Riverlands with brutal efficiency. Harrenhal burned again. Peasants were impaled. towns reduced to rubble, messages sent not in ink but in fire. In retaliation, Robb struck, swift and hard, defeating Jaime's cousin, Stafford, in a night raid that left hundreds dead and the Lannister camp in ruins. Songs were sung in the north, but the south only saw it as more rebellion. And through it all, Ned remained in King's Landing, trying to hold a kingdom together with frayed threads and broken oaths. Littlefinger finally made his move. He visited Ned alone, dressed in fine silks and bathed in scented oils. A man untouched by the chaos he quietly fed. "You've killed a king, Lord Stark, that either makes you a hero or the next corpse. I'm not playing games, Patir. I know that's your problem." He leaned on the desk, his voice low and cutting. "You think truth matters, that the realm will reward you for integrity. The people want power, security, bread, and none of them care who sits on the throne so long as they survive to kneel to it. What do you want?" Littlefinger smiled. "Chaos. Chaos is a ladder, remember. But this time, I don't want to climb it alone." Ned stared at him. "You want a seat at the table?" "No," Patir said. "I want to own the table. You just get to sit at it, until you're no longer useful." Meanwhile, Cersei wasn't idle. Though guarded, she was no prisoner. Her influence still snaked through the castle. Gold cloaks took her coin. Scepters whispered her prayers. Maesters listened to her tears, and slowly she began to bend the chamber to her will. Sansa was the key. The girl was lost, broken, her faith in her father shaken, and Cersei, ever the manipulator, filled the cracks with carefully placed lies. "Your father betrayed us," she told her sweetly. "He took your prince from you." "I don't believe you," Sansa whispered. Cersei leaned closer. "He'll destroy this city. He's already started. If you don't stop him, no one will." And when the moment came, Sansa said the words that echoed through the halls like a knife. "I want to go home." And across the narrow sea, the dragons stood in the heart of Drogo's tent, the eggs before her glowing faintly under candlelight. She had heard the whispers now. A dead king, a fractured realm, and her name, her family's name, creeping back into the mouths of spies and sellswords. "They remembered the dragon," she said. Jorah nodded. "But they don't fear it, not yet." She looked at the eggs, felt the heat, the breath of 1,000 ancestors. "Then we'll remind them. But hey, hold up you catching all this?" Sansa just turned on Ned. "Cersei's playing a long game. Littlefinger's planting roots, and the dragons are about to hatch. You seriously thought this what-if was just Ned and Jaime killing Joffrey? That was just the spark. This is a wildfire now. So here's the real question. If Daenerys sails now, who would stop her? The realm is fractured. The Baratheons fight each other. The north is burning with rage, and King's Landing. It's a house made of paper and lies dot smash that like if you're still breathing. Because next up the dragons are born, and Westeros will never be the same. The sky over Essos burned red. Daenerys stood alone on the pyre, the body of Khal Drogo smouldering beneath her feet. The heat licked her skin, but she did not move. The pain inside her was worse than any flame. The blood which had failed. Her child was gone. Her husband a corpse, and all that remained was ash. The fire roared louder. The air shimmered. Jorah screamed for her to run. She did not, because Daenerys Targaryen was not running anymore. She stepped into the inferno, and when the fire died, when the sun rose, And when the Dothraki bowed in silence, there she stood naked, unburnt, and cradling 3 dragons in her arms back in Westeros. Ravens flew like locusts across the skies, each bearing news darker than the last. Robb Stark had taken Riverrun. Jaime Lannister captured. Lord Tully held him in chains, a lion behind bars. The young wolf was winning battle after battle, earning respect, fear, and songs. And yet, Ned Stark remained in King's Landing, because war was no longer about honor, it was about control. Tywin had withdrawn south, regrouping his fury cold no more, dangerous than before. He sent gold, not swords, assassins, not armies. One Lannister in chains, another ruling in shadow, and a third Tywin himself biding time. Ned sat in the small council chamber with Varys, Baelish, Renly, and a dozen lords, all pulling the realm in different directions. The North wants independence, Renly snapped. Your son is wearing a crown he doesn't deserve. And what would you have him do? Ned asked. Bend the knee to a lie. Stannis is the rightful king, Varys murmured. Stannis has no army, Baelish countered, and no charm. The people will never love him. The people don't need love, Ned said. They need peace. Then kill the boy you call your king, Renly hissed, before his pride burns us all. And in that moment, Ned realized something terrifying. There was no king the realm would follow, because the realm didn't want truth, it wanted victory. Cersei struck that night. Sansa's betrayal wasn't loud, it was a quiet whisper, a note, slipped beneath the guard's armor. One sentence, the Hand is meeting with traitors tonight. Goldcloaks stormed the Tower of the Hand before dawn. Ned was awake. Of course, he always was. Jaime fought back to back with him, blades flashing in the moonlight, but they were outnumbered, outflanked, and then the man Ned trusted most arrived, Littlefinger. He held a dagger in one hand and smiled. You should have taken my deal. Lord Stark, Jaime cursed, blood on his lip. You snake, I warned you both, Batia said. But chaos waits for no man. The dagger sliced through Jaime's leg. Ned reached for ice, but it was too late. The pummel was heavy, his body slower now. The hilt fell from his fingers as a blade pierced his side. Not mortal, but enough. Take them alive, Littlefinger commanded. Why? One of the guards asked. Because dead men don't pay debts, he whispered. Stop. Okay, did anyone just feel that drop in their stomach? Jaime Lannister bleeding, Ned Stark betrayed again, and Littlefinger playing everyone like a damn flute. This isn't just war now, it's personal. Sansa's betrayal, Petty's dagger, the gold cloaks flipping again. It's not just a power struggle, it's a collapsing empire. But hang on, it gets even worse. Because down in the dungeons, as Ned clutches his ribs, as Jaime curses every name in Westeros, they hear footsteps, heavy, measured, armored, and the man who enters is Tywin Lannister. He didn't waste time with speeches. You killed my grandson, Tywin said to Ned, voice like iron. Your grandson was a bastard born of incest. He was a king. He was a mistake. Tywin's jaw tightened. Then you've just killed half the realm's future. Congratulations. He turned to Jaime. You, my legacy, and you choose this northern fool over your own blood. Jaime didn't speak. Speak, Tywin snapped. I'm tired, Jaime muttered. Tired of being a Lannister. You were born one, doesn't mean I want to die one. Tywin looked at both men, then gave the order. Send the Stark to the cells. Drag my son to Casterly Rock, and tell the realm the war is just beginning. And north of the wall the dead stirred. Jon Snow stood atop the icy ramparts, Ghost at his side, his heart beating in rhythm with the cold wind. Sam came running, breath white in the air. They found another one, Sam panted. Another ranger. Dead eyes, black, skin like ice. Jon's mouth tightened. The wall was cracking. Not physically, but in spirit. The watch was thinning. Craven, isolated, forgotten by a realm too, busy tearing itself apart over crowns and gold. But something worse was coming, and Jon knew no king would stop it. And across the sea, Daenerys now fed her dragons raw meat from her own hands. They grow, she whispered, and soon they will feed on more. Jorah knelt beside her. The realm is not ready, then we won't ask permission. She looked west and smiled, so let's pause, breathe, ask yourself, Ned Stark, now a prisoner. Jaime Lannister, exiled by his own father. Sansa twisted by grief and lies. Littlefinger running the board, and Dany. Oh, Dany just grew wings. We're not even at the climax yet, so here's my question for you. Who actually deserves the throne? Now, Robb Stannis, Renly, Dany, or someone else entirely? Drop your theory, because coming next, the dragons fly, the wall falls, and a dead king returns. Yes, that king, you're not ready, not ready. Chains bit into Ned Stark's wrists as they dragged him through the black stone corridors beneath the Red Keep. Each step echoed like a drumbeat of shame. His leg throbbed from the wound Littlefinger's men had given him. His ribs ached with every breath. The air stank of mold, old blood, and rotting ambition. In the cell they threw him in, the walls wept moisture. And yet, despite the darkness, despite the pain, Ned felt no fear, just failure. He had tried to save the realm by removing a monster. Instead, he had handed the realm to 1,000 smaller ones at Casterly Rock. Jaime sat in a room that didn't feel like his. Tywin hadn't spoken a word since they arrived. Not one. He hadn't even looked at him. You always said family first, Jaime said finally, staring out the window. Wasn't that your line? Tywin sat across from him, polishing a goblet, cold and unmoved. You disgraced your house. You broke alliance with your blood. And for what? A Stark. A man who would see our name buried in the dirt. He told the truth, Jaime replied. Eyes flared. The truth. The truth is what I decide it is. Then came the silence. The kind that only years of disappointment could create, and Jaime, once the proud lion, bowed his head. I'm not your legacy, he whispered. No, Tywin said flatly. You never were. Meanwhile, Robb Stark had reached the twins. The crossing was tense. Lord Walder Frey greeted them with mocking bows, lecherous grins, and a list of demands longer than the neck. A marriage to one of his daughters, hostages, titles, a seat at court. Catelyn argued, we don't have to do this. There are other ways. We don't have time, Robb replied. My father is in chains. Every day we wait, more die. The Riverlands burn. The Lannisters strengthen. So the deal was struck. Robb agreed to marry a Frey girl. And just like that, the young wolf walked deeper into the web at Dragonstone. Stannis read the latest raven with lips tight as stone. Ned Stark imprisoned, Jaime disgraced. The capital in chaos. He turned to Melisandre, her red eyes burning. Then the hour has come. She nodded, placing her hand over his. Light your sword, Lord of Light. The usurpers will fall. The flames have shown it. Seer Davos, standing behind them, didn't speak, but his jaw clenched. He had no love for kings, but he had even less for fire. Now pause, feel that tension building. Ned's locked away. Robb's making deals with vipers. Jaime's cast aside. Stannis is on the march, and Daenerys is ready to burn Westeros to the bone. But hold on, because something's about to happen that no one saw coming. A raven arrived at the wall, its message simple: the dead are walking. Jon Snow read the parchment twice. He looked up at Sam. We send it south. Sam nodded. They won't believe it. They have to, Jon muttered, or they'll die not knowing why. He stood on the wall, staring out at the endless white. Ghost growled low beside him, dot far out on the horizon. Movement, figures, taught too still to be men, taught quiet to be alive, and Jon whispered the words that would soon haunt all of Westeros. Winter isn't coming. It's already here. Back in King's Landing, Littlefinger was crowned in whispers. He wore no crown, but his fingers held every thread. Varys watched him from the shadows. He's playing with wildfire, the spider murmured. He thinks he controls the flame, but he's the kind of man who burns just to feel warm. Sansa was moved to a new chamber, luxurious, golden, but gilded with lies. She married the next king, Petyr told the court. Whoever that may be. And who would that be? Pycelle asked. Littlefinger smiled. I'll let the realm decide, as long as I count the votes. In the dungeons, Ned lay on cold stone, half asleep, half bleeding. When the door creaked open, a face stepped into the light. Arya. She said nothing at first, just stared, breathing hard. Arya, Ned whispered, stunned. How? Helped me, then Varys. I've been hiding in the tunnels. I know the Red Keep better than they do now. She knelt beside him. We're leaving. No, Ned said firmly. You leave. She shook her head. They took Joffrey. They'll take you next. Ned grabbed her wrist, weak but fierce. Listen to me. You run. You find your brother, your mother. You survive. This is not your war. Arya pulled away, teeth gritted. It is now. Wait. Are you telling me Arya just broke into the Red Keep dungeons to find Ned? This girl is 11, and she's already more lethal than half the damn Kingsguard. But don't blink, because the final plays are happening now. The North is about to strike. Stannis is lighting the flames. The dragons are ready, and the night is marching, gumming up. Next, the wall falls, the throne shatters, and the first dead king returns. Yes, that king. The wind howled over Castle Black like a warning whispered straight from the grave. Jon Snow stood atop the wall, his eyes fixed on the tree line beyond the frostbite of dawn. The world there was wrong, too quiet, the kind of silence that screamed. Then, as if answering the fear in his chest, horns blew, and two. And then the third. 3 blasts, the dead. The brothers of the Night's Watch scrambled like startled crows. Jon raced down the stairs, Ghost already darting ahead into the snow. Sam tripped over himself, his breath catching in his throat. There? Here, Jon growled. No, Sam gasped. They're coming. Far to the south, Robb Stark crossed the Green Fork with the bulk of his army. The banners of House Stark, Tully, Mormont, and Karstark flapped in the rain-drenched wind. Battle loomed, but ravens flew faster than swords, and the raven from the wall had arrived at first. Robb thought it was a joke, a distraction, a trick sent by Tywin to confuse him. But when he read it again and saw the fear in Maester Luwin's sealed reply, his fingers curled into fists. Dead men. Walking, he murmured. Roose Bolton raised an eyebrow. We march for Lannister blood, not ghost stories. It's not a story, Robb replied. It's the end of the world, and we're arguing about thrones. Meanwhile, in the Red, Keep Littlefinger had grown bold. He hosted feasts. He paid the gold cloaks better than the crown ever had. And in the quiet of moonlit halls, he began to whisper into Sansa's ear, not like a father, but like a king. They will want a queen, he said. And you, Sansa Stark, are the only one with a name that means anything. She turned away. Uncomfortable. I'm not ready. You were ready the moment Joffrey died, he said softly. And every day you stay silent. Others write your fate without you. He reached for her hand, and that night, Sansa didn't pull away. In the darkness beneath the Red Keep, Ned Stark's wounds had turned to fever, but the pain didn't scare him, not anymore. What haunted him was the cold, not the damp cell. Chill but a deeper cold. A memory from the north, from Winterfell, from the crypts. A whisper, a promise kept, or broken. He dreamt of Lyanna, of her voice, soft but pleading. Promise me, Ned. He awoke drenched in sweat, gripping the straw beneath him like it was a sword, and standing at the cell door was Varys. You have one more role to play, the spider said. I'm finished. Varys stepped forward. No, you're not. Because what walks beyond the wall will not care for kings or traitors. It will kill them all. Ned blinked, breath shallow. And what would you have me do? Confess, Varys whispered. Say you lied. Say you murdered Joffrey in a moment of madness. Say you deserve mercy. And then what? Then they'll send you to the wall and die anyway. Yes, Varys said, but not yet. And pause, are you feeling this unraveling? Ned, back to the wall. Robb's war overshadowed by the real enemy. Sansa walking straight into Littlefinger's grip. But we haven't even touched the surface of what's next. Because while Westeros fights over ashes, Daenerys is now more than a dragon queen. She's a myth reborn in the Red Waste. Daenerys stood before her Khaleesi, her dragons perched on her shoulders, their wings casting shadows that danced like omens. I am not your queen, she shouted. I am your storm. The Dothraki fell silent. You rode for Drogo. Now you will ride for fire. Jorah stepped forward. You'll need ships. We'll take them. You'll need gold. She turned, fire in her eyes. I have dragons. On the battlefield near Oxcross, Robb's forces clashed with Lannister vanguards. The ground ran red with blood. Grey wind tore through men like wind through wheat. But as the final Lannister line broke, a single rider appeared from the woods, tattered, black cloak flapping in the wind. Stop, the rider cried. The dead march. Robb lowered his sword. What did you say? The wall has fallen. The battlefield fell silent. Eastwatch is gone. The Night's Watch scattered. The White Walkers have broken through. Robb turned to his men, and for the first time, the young wolf looked afraid. Tywin Lannister stood in a candlelit chamber at Harrenhal, surrounded by silence and smoke. His spies had confirmed it. The dead had broken through. He didn't flinch. If it's true, he said to Kayvon, we do nothing. Kayvon blinked. What? Let the North fight them. Let the Watch crumble. Let the wolves bleed. And if the dead come here, Tywin's eyes turned cold. Then we'll build walls of fire, not stone, and feed the north to the flames. And across the sea, in the smoking ruins of Karth, Daenerys entered the house of the Undying. Visions swirled around her. A throne room, buried in snow, a shadow with blue eyes, a wolf howling in darkness, a man with a familiar face, Ned standing on the wall, sword drawn on. Then a dragon's scream, she gasped. The vision snapped, and the Undying whispered, the last dragon must face the first death. So here's the cliffhanger you didn't expect. The wall has fallen. The dead are marching. Daenerys has dragons. Robb's army is caught between fire and ice, and Varys. He just freed Ned Stark, because one last play remains, and it starts with a single raven. Addressed to Jon Snow, next up the return of Ned Stark, the rise of the Night King, and the sacrifice that breaks the realm. You're not ready, not ready. Snow fell on Castle Black like a silent funeral. Jon Snow stood near the shattered gate, the ice torn apart as if by gods themselves. Eastwatch was gone. Dozens of brothers lost. The Night King had not simply breached the wall. He had humiliated. It left behind only whispers of blue fire and blackened bone. Ravens had been sent, but none replied. Not Winterfell, not White Harbor, not King's Landing, just silence. Jon turned to the few who remained. Sam, Dolorous Et, a dozen bloodied survivors from the Watch and Wildling allies. Ghosts snarled in the snow, tails stiff, hackles raised. They're coming, Jon whispered. We hold them as long as we can. Sam held out a parchment, hands trembling. A raven from the south. You're not going to believe who it's from. Jon took the letter and read it twice, then again and again. His breath fogged in the cold. His heart pounded. It's from my father, Jon said, and for the first time in days, the fire in his eyes returned. Yes, Ned Stark was alive. Varys's plan had worked barely. The spider smuggled him out through the black cells, dressed in rags, escorted by silent sisters and hidden allies in the kitchens. The path through Flea Bottom was dangerous, but the chaos that now plagued the capital worked in their favor. Littlefinger had seized. Too much, too fast. The court thought Ned had been executed. The crowd had seen a man die, a poor look-alike, burned, disfigured, passed off as stark justice. But Ned was gone, headed north, not to reclaim Thrones, to warn his son in Riverrun. Robb sat stunned. The letter sat open before him, written in the hand he'd learned from childhood. The words were clear. I am alive. Do not trust Petyr Baelish. Trust no one. The dead come for us all. Protect Jon. He is the key. Catelyn wept. Roose Bolton narrowed his eyes. It's a trick, has to be. No, Robb murmured. It's him. He's alive. The men in the war tent erupted in arguments, theories, suspicions. But Robb had already made up his mind. Send riders, as many as we can spare, to the wall. If Jon stands alone, the north falls. And what of our war? Great Jon shouted. You're going to abandon the Riverland. We don't fight this war anymore, Robb said. We fight the war, the only one that matters. In King's Landing, Littlefinger sensed the shift. His power was growing, but something was wrong. Varys had vanished. The whispers were drying up. Gold cloaks began to avoid his gaze. Even Sansa grew colder each day, her eyes no longer soft and scared but sharp. Watching Dot, then the raven arrived. A single word carved in blood into the parchment. Alive. He crushed it in his fist. If Ned Stark truly lived, then everything unraveled. Daenerys stared at the sea. Her ships were ready. The unsullied, loyal. The dragons dash-hungry. But the winds from the west tasted strange now. Her dreams more vivid. The snow-covered throne. The shadow with burning blue eyes. A man with stark features calling her name through fire. Jon, she whispered. The name felt like a flame in her chest. Jorah approached. We sail tomorrow. No, she said. We delay. No, she said again. We fly. Back at Castle Black, Jon stood beneath the gate as riders approached through the snowstorm. At first he feared whites, then Lannisters, but it was neither. They wore no sigils, no house colours, just plain cloaks and tired eyes at the front, dismounting. Moving slowly was Ned Stark. Jon froze. The world disappeared. They stared at each other through falling snow. Years of silence and secrets between them. Then Jon whispered, "They told me you were dead." "They told me you were mine," Ned replied. "Wait, did you feel that?" Jon and Ned, reunited, on the edge of the world, with the dead marching south. But here's where it breaks wide open. Because Ned isn't just back to fight, he's back to tell Jon the truth. And everything is about to change. Inside the main hall, they sat across from each other. The fire crackled. The air was heavy. Jon waited. Ned struggled to speak. "I should have told you long ago," he said finally. "I failed you. I failed them." "All tell me now," Jon said. And so he did. Rager, Lyanna, the Tower of Joy. The name hidden. The lie forged in blood and love. "You are not my bastard, Jon," Ned said. "You are Aegon Targaryen, son of Rhaegar, the true heir to the Iron Throne." Jon stared at him, face pale. "I don't want it," he whispered. "It doesn't matter," Ned said. "You were born for it." And across the ice, in the frostbitten fields of the north, the Night King marched. He no longer needed to hide. His army was endless, his generals loyal, and in the sky above them, now soaring screaming, burning blue was Viscera Ion. The dead dragon. Wings of frost, eyes like death. So here's the final setup before everything explodes. Jon Snow is Aegon Targaryen. Ned Stark is alive, finally telling the truth. Daenerys is flying toward the wall, and the Night King, he's already here. Next up, the battle at the wall, the dragon versus dragon. And the moment Jon Snow dies, yes, again, this time, it's different. The sky above the wall was fire and death. Daenerys came first, Drogon's wings splitting the storm clouds apart, raining snow in wide spirals. The sound of his roar shattered the wind like thunder. Behind her, a fleet of Unsullied scrambled to reinforce the collapsing defenses of Castle Black, their spears useless against what waited in the white beyond. Jon stood atop the wall, wind tearing at his cloak, Ghost at his side, eyes locked on the frozen horizon. Beside him, Ned Stark was still pale, older, worn from weeks of flight, but somehow steadier than the stones beneath their boots. "You saw him?" Jon asked. "I did," Ned replied. "And when you look into those eyes, you'll forget there's such a thing as mercy." Then, a shriek echoed across the sky. Not dragon, something colder, higher, and from the clouds burst a shape, like a dagger through the heavens. Viscera Ion, blue-flamed, dead-eyed, the dragon of the Night King. Dany circled high above, her silver hair lashing in the wind that she had seen him, standing atop his beast, crowned in ice, cloaked in stormed the Night King. He raised one hand, and below, the dead surged forward like a crashing tides, thousands of corpses, their eyes burning with unnatural hunger. The wall groaned, castle black trembled. Jon drew, long-clawed Daenerys whispered to Dragon. Flames rained from the sky, the dead burned, but they did not stop. Viserion countered from the clouds, his blue flame colliding with Dragon's, red in a clash that shook the heavens. The two dragons spun in a frenzy, talons, clashing wings, tearing fire, scorching snow into steam. Below, chaos. Jon led the watch and wildlings through the breach, steel clanging on bone. Sam struggled to reload his crossbow, panicked shouts echoing behind him. "They don't stop." Sam yelled. "They're not supposed to." Jon grunted, slicing through two whites in one clean swing. "They're already dead." Ned fought beside his son, slower than before, but still lethal, every movement calculated, every strike purposeful. For the first time in years, the North fought not for houses, but survival, and then it happened. The Night King descended, riding Viserion. He landed behind the wall, stepping down onto cracked ice, like a god made of silence. Dany saw him and dove. Dragon screamed as he fell, flame pouring from his throat. But the Night King didn't flinch. With one fluid motion, he hurled his ice spear through the sky. It struck Drogon in the shoulder-piercing scale. Muscle, bone, Dany screamed. Dragon spiraled downward, crashing into the earth below with thunderous force. Everything went still. Jon turned eyes wide, heartbreaking. "Top right there. Did you just see what I saw?" Dragon down, Daenerys grounded, the Night King on foot, inside the wall. This is no longer a battle. This is a massacre in the making. But it gets worse, because Jon Snow knew Aegon Targaryen about to make the only move that could save them all, even if it kills him. Jon rushed through the snow, stumbling over corpses, shouting her name. Dany, Dany. She was alive, barely dragged from beneath Dragon's wing by Grey Worm and two, unsullied, blood soaking her side. "Leave me," she gasped. "Go." "I'm not leaving anyone," Jon snarled. Then he heard it, the crunch of snow. The dead had broken through. Whites poured through the shattered gate. Ghost lunged, ripping into the first wave, but it wasn't enough. Jon raised Longclond, then felt cold pierce his chest. Not from steel, from presence he turned. The Night King stood 10 feet away, silent, smiling. Ned shouted from the ramparts, "Jon, run." But Jon didn't run. He stepped forward. "You want me," he growled. "Here I am." The Night King tilted his head, then lifted one hand. The whites froze, stopped moving. An unnatural silence fell. Then the Night King pointed a single finger at Ned Stark. Jon's eyes widened. No, but before he could move, the Night King hurled his spear again. It flew straight for Ned, and Jon did what he never thought he would. He dove, the spear hit. Jon fell, the world went slow, blood in the snow. Ghost howled like the end of the world. Daenerys screamed. The wall groaned, buckled, and began to collapse. Wait, Jon Snow, down. He took the spear for Ned, for the father who wasn't his father, for the man who lied to protect him, for the truth that never came soon enough. But here's the part that will rip your soul out. The Night King didn't kill him to win. He killed him to use him as the wall collapsed in pieces behind them, and the dead surged forward once more. The Night King walked to Jon's body, stooped, placed one icy hand over his chest. and whispered something in a language that froze the wind. Itself long pulsed blue. Jon's eyes opened, but they didn't see. Not at first. So now, here's where everything flips, Jon. Snow is dead. Aegon Targaryen is undead. And what happens next will break Westeros in half. Because one dragon queen, one direwolf, one dead father, and one entire realm have to decide if Jon Snow is still worth saving. Next up, the last stand at Winterfell. Daenerys' fury unleashed, and the day the Night King dies, or wins Winterfell burned in the distance. Smoke curled into the grey sky like a final breath. The gates were broken, the walls cracked, the courtyard littered with corpses, some still burning, some beginning to move again. The North had returned home to die. Inside the shattered grate, Daenerys stood over a war table littered with broken banners. Her side was bloodied, her breath short. The gash along her ribs throbbed with every heartbeat, but she stood, because he was gone, because Jon was gone, not lost, not dead. Worse, taken by the Night King. She'd seen it with her own eyes, the blue light, the unnatural stillness, the way Jon's body rose, not in agony, but in command. He hadn't screamed, hadn't fought, hadn't resisted. He had simply opened his eyes and followed. Varys had said it long ago, if he turns, we lose. Now, she didn't know if he had. Arya returned that morning, riding through the broken gates on a dead man's horse, her hair matted, face streaked with soot and blood. The Hound was gone, probably buried somewhere beneath the frozen rubble at Castle Black. Where is he? She asked before she even dismounted. Daenerys met her eyes. He's not dead. Arya's face didn't change, just her eyes. Sharper now, cold. Then he's the enemy. No, Dany whispered, not yet. Arya looked at her, measuring. Something deeper than words. Then what are we waiting for? In the crypts beneath Winterfell, Ned Stark stood alone. The war raged above. The bodies of his ancestors surrounded him. He stared at Lyanna's statue, the candles flickering like ghosts around her stone face. He had buried the truth once to protect Jon, and now that lie had come back twisted. He knelt before her, voice breaking. I tried, I swear I tried. Then a sound echoed behind him. The whisper of steps. He turned, and there stood Bran Stark, older, stranger, his eyes milky, but far-seeing. Ned, Bran said calmly. It's time. Time for what? Ned asked. For the truth to do what lies never could. Meanwhile, the Night King moved south. Jon rode at his side, silent, expressionless, but moving like a king reborn. The undead followed behind them like a storm. At the front rode wights in stark armor. At the rear, the remains of the knights. Watch eyes glazed, mouths closed forever. Jon said nothing, but something within him still flickered. Each night, when the camp of the dead went still, he dreamed of wolves, of fire, of a voice saying his name, not in command, but in love. Wait. Take that in. Jon Snow is with the Night King, but his soul's not fully gone. And you know what that means. Someone still has a chance to bring him back, but only if they get to him before it's too late. Daenerys gathered what remained grey. Worm, Arya, Davos, Brienne, Sam, Tormund, ragged, scarred but breathing. The last stand, Dany said. Here, in the north, where it began. Sam stepped forward, holding a black scroll. There may be one way, he said. One way to break the hold. He opened the parchment, a shard of dragonglass to the heart, not to kill, but to purge. If there's anything left in him, it might set him free. Arya stepped forward. I'll do it. No, Daenerys said. I will. Arya's jaw tensed. You love him, she said. I do. Then that makes it harder. That night, beneath Winterfell's ruined towers, Bran met with Daenerys alone. You saw this coming, she said bitterly. I saw many things, Bran replied, but not all of them could be stopped. Then tell me, can he be saved? Bran didn't answer immediately. Then, if he remembers who he is, if he hears you, sees you, feels what? Bran looked at her, really looked home. And so they prepared. Winterfell was no longer a fortress, it was a tomb. But in that tomb stood those who still believed in the living. Dany mounted dragon, armor refreshed. Arya vanished into the shadows. Sam handed the shard of dragonglass to Grey. Worm, Brienne, and Davos manned the battlements. And Ned Stark stood above the crypts once more, watching the gate, waiting. The dead came at dawn. Snow turned to ash. Viserion roared above, his frostfire shattering towers. Whites crashed against the walls like waves. Grey Worm led the Unsullied in a desperate defense. Tormund roared like a bear. Brienne fought until her sword cracked, and through the smoke Jon came. Eyes blue, armor blackened, sword drawn. Dany saw him. She landed, stepped forward, heart pounding. Jon, she said, her voice breaking. He stopped, didn't blink, didn't move. Jon, it's me. He said nothing. She took another step. I loved you. Still nothing. I still do. She reached for his hand. For a moment, just a breath, his fingers trembled. Then his eyes shifted, blue, began to fade. But the Night King saw it. He raised his hand. Viserion turned, roared. Flame screamed toward them. Dany leaped in front of Jon, took the full blast. She screamed, fell. And Jon Snow woke up. For real, he roared. Not with pain, but rage. Spun around, and plunged Longclaw through the night. King's heart, not ice, not fire. Valyrian steel, and dragonglass. From Sam, from Arya, from love. The Night King shattered. The dead fell. But Dany didn't move. Jon ran to her, held her. She smiled. You came back. He wept. I never left. And in his arms, under the sky of Winterfell, Daenerys Targaryen died. Wait, what did we just witness? Jon saved the realm, killed the Night King, broke the curse, but the cost, Daenerys. This wasn't a victory, it was a sacrifice, but the wheel, it just cracked. Next up, Jon Snow's final choice, the new king or no king at all. And the day Westeros learns what peace truly costs. Snow fell like ash as the fires dimmed. The Battle of Winterfell was over. The dead were gone. The Night King shattered. Viserion's bones lay scattered across the frost-hardened fields, unmoving. The last great war had been fought not for crowns, not for pride, but for the right to live, and the cost was carved into the stone of Winterfell forever. Daenerys Stormborn of House Targaryen, mother of dragons, breaker of chains, was dead. Her body lay in the godswood, wrapped in stark cloaks. Jon sat beside her, silent, unmoving. Longclaw rested across his knees, stained with ice and blood and memory. He didn't cry, he sealed ULDN, single quotes. His tears had frozen inside him. Inside, the great hall, the last of the living gathered. Ned Stark stood with his sons, Bran and Robb, on either side. Sansa, silent, stood near the hearth. Arya leaned against the wall, blade still blood-wet, face unreadable. Tyrion Lannister had arrived only hours earlier, leading the last remnants of the southern armies who came too late. He removed his pinther, last hand of the Queen, and placed it on the long table before them. She was the last dragon, he said, and now the throne has no rider. Bran spoke next. That's not true. All eyes turned to Jon as he entered. He looked like a ghost, hair tangled, cloak torn, eyes hollow. He didn't sit. I'm not a king, he said quietly. I never was. Sansa stepped forward. You're Aegon Targaryen. Jon shook his head. Names don't matter anymore. Not after what we saw, what we fought. You united the realm, Tyrion said. North and south. You killed the Night King. You've done what no other could. And for what? Jon replied, voice rising. So more banners can fly over burned homes. So another crown poisons. Another soul. He looked down at the sword in his hand, then up at the table of lords and survivors. The throne is broken. Let it stay that way. Pause. Take that in. Jon Snow just rejected the Iron Throne, not because he's afraid, not because he's unworthy, but because he understands better than anyone what power costs. But the question now isn't just who will rule ... It's how the world will survive without rulers. Arya spoke next. I'm not staying, she said. I've seen enough of kings and monsters. I want to see what's west of Westeros. Robb raised a brow. You'd go alone. I always have. Bran nodded. She'd find something. She always does, Ned added. Sansa looked to Jon. Then what becomes of you? He hesitated, then turned to Tyrion. I go to the wall, but the wall is gone, Jon interrupted. And what's left needs rebuilding. Not for war, for peace, to protect. Not from whites, but from ourselves. Ned stepped forward, hand on Jon's shoulder. You would do that? Give up your claim, your name? Again, Jon looked him in the eye. For the realm, for her. 3 days later, the ashes of Daenerys were scattered beneath the heart tree. Drogon returned only once, circling the skies before vanishing east. No one saw where he landed. The Iron Throne, or what remained of it, was melted into a pool of steel by dragonfire and buried beneath the Red Keep ruins. No one rebuilt it. A council formed. No king, no queen, just leaders, chosen, voted, balanced by houses and history. Tyrion called it a dream. Sansa called it the future. Robb was named Warden. Of the North, Brienne rebuilt the Kngsguard. Sam opened a new citadel in Winterfell. Bran remained. The Watcher, as for Jon, he returned to the far north, past Castle Black, past the ruins, past the wall. He didn't go alone. Tormund waited, Ghost at his side, and hundreds of wildlings those who now followed the White Wolf, not as a king, but as a guide. And as the final snow fell and the last scars of war faded, Arya's ship disappeared into the western fog. Bran closed his eyes beneath the weirwood tree and whispered to the wind, and Jon stood atop a frozen hill, watching the dawn rise over a world that might finally know peace. And there it is, the final chapter. Ned lived, Jon rose, Dany burned bright and fell for love. The Night King lost, the Iron Throne gone, and maybe, just maybe, that was always the point. Not who sits on the throne, but who walks away from it. If you made it this far, drop your theories in the comments. Who do you think should have ruled? Did Jon do the right thing? Would you have saved Daenerys? And if this ending gave you chills, heartbreak, or hope, smash that like, subscribe for more what ifs. Because next time we ask, what if the red wedding never happened?